We're having this conversation because every project starts with a conversation and will lead to many conversations. So we're hoping that our talks will help the guiding process.
So today, the process, what from the initial conversations that a contracting company will have with a client and through to creating the contract and then all the way throughout execution and there afterwards.
Yeah.
So we've developed our process based on the mission that we have behind Collet Homes, which is to protect our clients' investment.
Yeah.
Executing and performing a top level renovation, the quality, the craftsmanship should be like, that's the minimum.
That's the basic. And we protect the client's investment, but also the vision, whether it's your vision or the architect's vision or the interior designer's vision. The process is stepped in a way that we can get clarity at each point of the process, whether it's like starts with an idea and guide you towards like defining your budget, depending on your needs, or if the design is done, getting like a more precise budget. So we will get in the heart of it.
Yeah, so getting to know the client and also understanding what the purpose of the renovation for. For some, it's a resale. For some, it's a rental property. And for others, it's the property that they're going to live in. So this is important.
Maybe give away to their children later on. So we have different point of view.
So an asset that performs differently. And
Exactly.
the goal is to make that asset perform at its...
So depending on your choices, goal or like the place of that piece of a real estate is going to have in your life, you will have different priorities. That's why we talk about lifestyle, but also the level of amenities you want, the level of finishings, the level of the materials you desire. So then, like we talked about budget, and that will define the limits of what you're willing to invest in there. And just a quick note before we get in the process itself, the budget is, we need that to help you spend your money the best. It's not, how much can we spend for you? It's like, what can we do with it? And we'll help you, we'll guide you to decide where you can invest the best and where you can splurge, where you can save. So it's really a guide for you and for us to lead to the best of what you want to do.
And the budgets really come before the design choices. Like it's budget first and then design.
Yeah.
Or budget baked into the eventual design.
Which leads to like the first part would be a call or a visio, because we can have already a general idea of your budget. So by having a conversation on what you want to do, your lifestyle, the level of finishing you want, we'll have a rough idea of the budget you need. So we'll be able to give you a range.
So maybe like the level of finish, but also the material selection.
Yes,
There's like
that's
standard,
what I mean. Yeah, thanks for
mid-range. So you can have these calls, and contractors who've been in business for a while will generally, no matter if they're going on site or they're doing it with pictures that you send them, they're giving you their most probable cost analysis and basing it on past projects, which when you've been in the business for a while, this becomes your expertise. You can look at square meter and you can get an idea of the material selections that they're going to want and the design, if they're going to be moving walls, relocating amenities, and that also comes at a bigger cost. So you can do that generally on a video conference or with pictures. And then generally from there, the next step would be to go on site, to hire an on-site consultation. And this is where you get into the feasibility and the technicality of it.
Exactly. So that the second step after we validate like the right fit on the phone or on Visio, we go on an on-site consultation, which gives you a preliminary feasibility study. It's not like in detail engineered study, but what is doable from our knowledge and technical expertise that we get on site. And then at the end of this meeting, you'll have a more refined budget and the limits or the allowances of your project, knowing what you can do, what you can expect. So we'll tell you like the limit, the risks, if there's unknowns, knowing, or you should involve like maybe that reserve for electrical since you want to do this remodel. So it's going to be more in detail. We spend like 1 to 2 hours on site and give you like a little report and then a more defined budget.
And things like, oh, actually, you won't be able to remove that wall because it's load bearing and you are in a shared complex and that's not allowed.
Yeah, or like we will need to involve an engineer study. It's going to cost X thousand of francs, and then you can expect this and that. So we'll also be like, you want to do this, you have to reserve like that part of your budget in there. So that will also guide you through your choices.
Mm-hmm. So basically, the contrary to a preliminary estimation, or it's called a devis here, is an on-site feasibility consultation. And here is where you actually have an expert opinion protecting you from future surprises and or helping you align your budget and your design steps further.
Yeah. And in renovation, surprises happen, on the regular. What we want to do is reduce the amount of surprises as we go into the process. Because going back to the offers, it's easy to give a devis, an offer, an initial one to get somebody to select us, but we want to be very precise because we don't want that offer to turn into 50% more because it was just an offer like in the wind kind of. So we can do that whether on site or not for the initial offer, so that the first conversation, and then the second step, then we put more details, so we're guiding it. And so if we define it 3 steps, the first one is an estimate that you can have and get it quickly. You can have then after the feasibility, so that your budget is going to be refined. And comes the third one, when we define the design, we start on working on which materials, which finishing you want. Then we get even more precise on the budget. So as we come along the steps, then you get clarity on what you want, how it's going to be done, and the final budget.
So if we break it down into phases, it's like phase 1 is the feasibility and the technicality and just kind of the more refined but still broad over range. So as a client, they can come in and they can hire this as a service to help them know which next step that they want to take. And they will also be left with a deliverable that will have illuminated their path forward and given them more confidence. So that's the other thing that we are building our construction contracting business on is really helping, giving clients the tools to truly feel confident making decisions. And the confidence only comes from really having a good understanding, and a solid contractor will be able to break that down. And then that just makes all the next decision making that much easier and that much more fun.
Yeah.
If we break it down, it's like you can have a preliminary call, and that's usually what helps you decide if you are in alignment with your potential contracting company and if the contractor is in alignment with your project. And then from that point you would do, so we'd say phase 1 is the feasibility study, and that's when you're doing the on-site consultation, technicality, still a range of budgets of suggested material range budgets and the work that will have to be involved. And then we move on to phase 2, which is when you really start connecting the feasibility of your space, your projects, considerations and expectations with design.
Exactly. So
how does that look like with a contractor? It can either be client-led, it can be contractor help supported, and then interior designer, architect. And these are all decisions that the client will make based on the amount of time that the client would like to contribute or the expertise that the client themselves have, based on the complexity of the project.
Yeah, exactly. So from here, and so these phases would be a part of the pre-construction agreement. So 1, 2, 3, the preliminary study, the design, and then the agreement for construction, like in the third phase, when we list all the details of what we will do, then you'll have like basically a fixed budget that you can sign and go to construction with.
So how does that look then for design selection? So do you as a contractor give an overview of, okay, so for your bathroom project, for example, you have 15 square meters of tile, and in order for it to remain within this fixed eventual budget, you will have an allotment of a range of...
Yeah, we have a selection allowance, and so if we come, like, we have basically three ways of doing design. Either it's like client led, so the client does all their research, and then they select what they want in the partners we have, just getting the materials like from Switzerland and getting the best materials at the market price. So they will do their research and selection, and if they need a render, we reproduce that in house. And so that client-led design is simpler for people who have a really good idea and want to invest the time in searching and defining their own projects. Not for everybody, but we have had clients who really know what they want. They had experience in renovations. They know exactly. They've been like, browsing the internet for every inspiration, and they know what they want. That's for them. That's the easiest because they put their ideas into pictures, and they want to touch and feel the material and go on site and browse around. If you have the expertise and involvement and want to invest the time, that's the first route. Second way is to maybe you coming already with a design, with an interior designer or an architect, and we're coming for the execution phase when we are like working alongside your architect, your interior designer. And the third phase is people need some architect because of permits, of wanting something more refined, or an interior designer because they want to have the selection brought to them. That's another option.
And a well-versed contractor would be able to work with any architects. It's not something that you have to only work with a contractor who has their in-house architects, or that is going to be the best best outcome. A well-versed contractor will be able to look at plans and then be able to inform even the execution perspective to the architect.
Yeah, the most complex the project is, the more you're going to need an architect. If it's something you can define yourself and explain quickly, and we don't need any authorization or anything, like you can go the first way, but like grade it up to the third one when you need an architect for, as I said, permits or like design purposes. That would guide the project really well.
We talked about design, collaboration, and then just about can you go a little bit further into the detailed planning before construction? So is this also how we sequence and align? What can be said about how we're detailing further?
So the detailed planning, it's something we shared with the client. So that would be another topic of discussion. Basically, all our information is centralized in a platform that we can share with the client. Everything is archived online. So whether it's like your budget, your quotes, everything you sign, and as we just talked about the schedule, it would be online, so you can see it, and we can validate each step as we go when we're in the construction. But before that, we would make a temporary planning based on your selection. So that would be moved along, same as the budget, as you refine your choices. Let's say coming back to the bathroom example, let's say you want to select a vanity and a sink that are in stock at the manufacturer, who will know the delay is going to be less, or you want to have something made like custom made in Italy, or having some marble to be brought in and worked for your specific vanity top or sink, that would lead to more delays. So depending on the project, the planning is going to be made accordingly. The point is to be sure of those timelines and keep like buffers, so we start the project on time and finish it on time. So most likely we'll will push the start of the project to make sure everything's aligned. That's also part of the very important part of the sequencing and the planning.
The planning stage 1 and stage 2 is where this famous pre-construction agreement is created. And what I personally like about the pre-construction planning is that it's broken down. So as I was saying, a client is getting deliverables for each step that will help them understand the next best step forward. And so when you hear, oh, contact us for an estimation, no obligations, no pressure, this is where you truly, as a consumer, do feel no pressure. When you're paying for a service, for expert guidance, and you're given deliverables that you can then either move forward, so phase 2 of the pre-construction agreement, or you can, if you need time to sit on it, at least you have all of this documentation that has
as a base, a starting point to be reflecting more and
and
your project.
Establish which direction you want to go further. Maybe you underestimated the amount of time or budget that would be involved, and or want to plan it for a time when you're not going to be living in your space. Then you have something, a dossier that you can then take to, well, or perhaps if you don't like the contractor, you just don't feel that good fit, you can then take that and go and find a company that you can just execute everything with, or you can go back. So this is when I think if it's clearly outlined and you're getting something for what you're paying for, this is when you truly feel no obligations, and it's not just this throwaway buzzword to get the sale.
Exactly. And I found like at the beginning of a project, you get the initial one, and there's so many unknowns as far as like what your space is like, what exactly you want to do, what design you want to do, what materials you want to use, what finishing you want to select. So there's going to be lots of unknown initially. That's why nobody, until they start doing a more detailed study, will be able to give you a price. And that's ultimately what you want as a customer, like what you're willing to spend for the results you desire. So that starts like this, and then as we refine, there's some reserve for the unknowns and the surprises. But getting to the end of the third phase, being ready for construction, most of the project, unless there's really unknowns that we'll discover just after an exploratory phase in the construction, coming back at that phase, we basically take off that line of unplanned
contingency budget,
because at this stage everything is set up. So there might be change orders if you change your mind, or if there's a little modification, but most of the budget is then fixed. So you go in all confidence, and then you'll know your project will not have this 10-15% ranges until you decide to change different options. It's mostly going to be just a few tweaks here and there if there's like those surprises you find. So I feel once you get through the process and you're ready to order, everything is set.
And that was my last point, actually, was managing risk and protecting the client ultimately. So
that would be part of the project as it's ongoing. So whether as we do with the ordering, which is taking a lot of the pre-construction time, we will update you if there's different delays, if there's different eventualities to consider, and then as the project is actually going physically, if there's any surprise, anything, because we're on site on the regular, we will update you through our platform. And should there be any choice to make on the go, we'll have like the tools to make you the most objective person to decide.
So it's communication. So in the process, when you're measuring what's really important for for you in hiring a contractor, it would definitely be to see that there is an organized and structured process. And in that process, there's form of communication that's tangible. It's not just, we're great at communicating, we're going to keep you updated. It's like, okay, can you explain to me exactly how you do keep me updated, how the frequency of communication that we'll have? And then just another point on the risk management side, if we take steps back to, I guess, would be the feasibility, and maybe the phase one is a contractor that can advise you on if you would be even allowed to do the project. And that's, I think, managing some of the risk, because we've had the experience of people who have gone with, and I mean, it happens with contractors, it also happens with architects or interior designer, that they will say, yes, okay, I hear your design wishes, and they maybe didn't do their homework.
Yeah, they do diligence.
Their due diligence, they charge you for the design plan, and then...
Yeah, recently, that's a really good remark, because recently we've been involved, like we heard a story of somebody who was really disappointed because they hired a professional of the design. Nothing against anybody, but that person didn't advise them well. That person wanted to buy 2 apartments and like link them together to make one apartment, a duplex, which technically is really feasible. It depends on your budget and like what you want to do with it. But in Geneva, the laws are really tough in terms of if you want to reduce the amount of livable space that you can rent or buy. So putting 2 in 1 is basically not allowed almost anywhere. So that was a really poor advice. Like the person bought the 2 apartments just relying solely on that advice. So now she has these 2 apartments. I mean, it's a good problem to have, but she's not able to bring that project to fruition because it's not doable.
Yeah.
So
it's the same in any profession, medical profession, whatnot. There are certain levels of expertise, and that's just...
So having a basic consultation to lighten you up on what you cannot do, or give you clues as to what is possible, I think is really important. It's worth the investment, because you're spending a few hundreds and maybe saving thousands, or maybe you won't do that project because you realize it's not for you.
Yeah.
So I feel it's really important to have that guidance.
And the phased approach, so that you can take chunks as you go, and you're not locked into an overall projected cost and sign on the dotted line and away we go, only to possibly be confronted with problems that were not addressed in what would have been a feasibility phase.
Exactly.
All right, so hopefully that helps with beyond just comparing estimates, or in Geneva, les devis. Just, an idea of how you as a client or you as a contractor can structure or look for structured, phased pre-construction planning to your renovation or construction projects.
Happy renovation.
Happy renovation.